Welcome, everybody. We have a wonderful hangout for you today. I'm very honored to be here today with Jenell Stewart. She is from Kinky Curly Coily Me, and she is a mom. You can see that she has her beautiful daughter Elle with her. And also with Diane Bailey, who is an amazing natural hairstylist. Both women were part of a film that we did with SheaMoisture called Hair Raising, How Mothers Affect how mothers impact our beauty awareness. And this is a topic that I think all of us feel very, very passionate about. It is something very defining in terms of how we perceive ourselves and how we perceive our daughters and help them feel good about their own hair. And I'm going to kick it right off by addressing a question to both of you. Jenell, tell me a little bit about your own relationship with your mother and how she felt about your hair and her hair and how that affected how you feel about your own hair.
Well, my mom and my father are both from Liberia, West Africa, so they are coming from a community where people wore their hair very similar to how women wore their hair in America. Western influence is rampant in countries like Africa. And so when my mom had me, it was in my younger years, she was very comfortable with styling my hair in styles that were child appropriate, like the little puffs and things like that. But as I got older, she found it to be a challenge. And so relaxing my hair was an option that she chose after like hot combing and pressing it. The hot combing experience was devastating. For those of you who may not be familiar with the hot comb, it was a metal comb that my mom would put on the stove, and she would use the flame from the burner to heat it up. And then she'd grease my hair and she would comb through it. And first of all, I mean, that was deathly hot and dangerous. And the experience itself, I was always so nervous because you could literally hear the crackling of my hair in my ears as the comb would pass through. And the heat from the metal of the comb, just the heat alone, would make me tense up in fear because it was so hot already to begin with. And the fear of me getting burned. And my mom would always say, like, hold still, don't move. So I knew, don't move. And every now and then I get a little hiss on my ear and I tense up, and my mom would always say, I told you not to move. And I'd be like, I didn't. But that was the process. And because that process was so time consuming and also very hard on me, it was hard on her because we were both stressed. It ultimately, the relaxer this was one of those options that she felt most comfortable with because it was quick. She could do it at home. And, you know, I did experience the headaches, I experienced the burning of my scalp, and because my texture was so thick, my hair was so thick, my texture was so kinky, my mom wanted to leave it on for as long as the directions would allow so that she could really get it straight. And I remember so many times my eyes just squenched and I would be yelling and telling my mom, it burns, it's burning. And my mom would just say 5 more minutes, and 5 more minutes would pass, and then it was still 5 more minutes, and she would try to get me through these 5 minutes. And then finally it would be like running to a sink to literally extinguish a fire because it was just like, I need to get this out right now. And then we would rinse and we would rinse and we would rinse, and the result was scalp burns. And of course, straight hair that was manageable and that I could handle. But the process to get there, oh my goodness, it was horrible.
And I'm sure the process also kind of started getting you to feel a certain way about your natural texture, which yeah. Diane, tell me a little bit about your relationship with your mother and your hair. Was she natural? Were you natural? When did you become natural?
I was really independent, so I went to summer camp and learned how to cornrow when I was about 8 or 9. And after I came back from camp, I pretty much was braiding my own hair until I got into middle school, where I decided I needed to straighten it, and I would straighten it on my own. I straightened my own hair. So I've always loved hair, and I always loved makeup. So my mother allowed me to experiment with my hair and do things within reason. My mom, when I first recall how beautiful she was, she would always wear a wig. I never saw her natural hair when she was going out. Her natural hair was for when she stayed in the house or when she worked. But when she went to socialize or she went to party, she wore these beautiful, glamorous wigs, you know, and dresses to match. And so wigs were always a part. You know, I was always associated with wigs with femininity and sexuality because that's how my mother presented it. She allowed me to experiment with my hair, and because I did it well, by the time I was 10, I was managing my own hair.
And did either of your mothers, Diane specifically, she seems to have, you know, helped you embrace your natural texture or allowed you to kind of experiment with it a little bit or a lot. Do you think that helped define how you feel about your hair today and how you work with your two daughters?
Well, you know, I'm from the same culture we all are from, where the imagery that we saw didn't reflect what I saw in the mirror. Not only did I have kinky hair, but I had dark skin, a wide nose, and thick lips. So those images weren't there for me to see. So I emulated them. I wanted to have, you know, long, luxurious hair. And so and that never happened until I started wearing extensions. But while I was in high school, you know, this is around, you know, the 80s, you know, I wore my hair natural again. Because every time I put a chemical in my hair would fall out. Every time there was a new chemical for me to put in, I would try it, and 3 weeks later, my hair would be gone. So that cycle happened a few times, and then I realized chemicals are not for me. So by the time I was in high school, by the time I was a senior in high school, I graduated with an afro. And I went to college. I went to Hunter College with my hair natural.
And was that an empowering feeling? Did you feel confident, or did it take you a while to feel confident about your natural hair?
It took me a while to feel confident about it, but I realized that I was my own person, and I felt like I said to someone one day, you know, I am just too pretty to be bald-headed, you know? So if I had a choice between having hair and not having hair that was natural was my option, I took it.
And Jenell, tell me about your journey to natural hair and how long did it take you to truly accept your hair?
I definitely had similar experiences to Diane, where I was the images that I saw around me that shaped what beauty was not me. It was definitely not what I saw in the mirror. So because I had been exposed to the relaxers from such a young age, it was this continuing cycle. I just never knew that I could not relax my hair. It was just not a thought. It never occurred to me, you know what, when the 6 to 8 weeks is up and that new growth, as we call our hair that it's growing in, you can just stop. I never thought that. So it was just my entire life from about 6 years old, every 6 weeks, just getting a relaxer. And I remember times where if I wasn't able to get it done because I didn't feel confident myself, and like when I was in high school or my mom was too busy or I went away to college, I just felt like I was so alone, like I was in this place of fear because if I did not get someone to relax my hair, I would be ugly. I just felt like I was ugly, like I have to get this done. So it affected me emotionally. It affected me in relationships. I remember dating guys when I was in high school or college, and I was devastated for them to see me with my hair as it grew out. And I wore weaves as well because I wanted my hair to grow long, and unfortunately, similar to Diane, I'd put the relaxer in and it would just break. It would never grow past a certain length, no matter how much I would visit my stylist and have them care for it, no matter how much I followed all the rules. So longer weaves was my choice. It was something that I chose to do to get the long aesthetic that I desired. And it wasn't until I was 25, which is when I went natural. I'd already graduated from both college and undergrad. I hadn't had any children yet, but it wasn't until that point that I finally felt like, okay, I'm ready to do this. And it was not an easy decision. It literally felt like I was taking a part of me that I had known for the last 25 years of my life, my entire life, and committing to live completely brand new. It felt like I can't even describe it. It was just so scary. And when I decided to do it, I took a scissor and I cut my hair right in the front. And I said, there's no going back when you cut the front. Like, if you cut the back, you can always fix that up somehow. But if you cut the front, excuse me, Joelle, I need you to be quiet. Mommy's on a call. Thank you. I'm sorry, guys. If you cut the front, that's it. It's over. And I just chopped it in the front. And my cousin looked at me like, oh my God, you're really doing this. And I said, yes, it's official. Going natural.
And so when your mother saw you that first time with your natural hair, you know, as somebody who was relaxing her hair for years and years, what was that first reaction that she had?
She was stunned. My mom had worn her hair short because, you know, she grew up in the 60s, she grew up in the 70s, so she had experience like wearing short hair and having an afro, but for many years she never had. And so for me, she was just like, wow, you look really nice with your hair like that, which was the most comforting reaction because, of course, you're so nervous. At the time my husband and I were engaged, even his reaction was so comforting, and I started to feel my insecurities kind of shed away. And my mom, who was not natural at the time, she decided maybe about a month or two after I did, she herself went natural and has been natural since then. So we've been able to support each other through this journey, as well as two of my sisters and many, many friends. I actually don't know if there's anyone in my circle that is still relaxed at this point.
Well, as a very popular natural hair blogger, I'm sure you're having an influence on people even beyond your friend group. I'm curious because I know that for me, my mother had straight hair, which was, you know, and my sister had straight hair. So I grew up with a dad who had curly hair, but a mother who had no idea what to do with my hair, so she cut it in a pixie. And I had a pixie until 8th grade, and it really influenced my feeling about myself, and it has really influenced my feelings about how I want to raise my curly daughter and how I want her to feel about her own hair. So I would love to talk with you about how your experiences really shaped how you worked with your own daughters and what that experience has been like.
Well, this is Diane. Well, I locked my daughter's hair when she was 2. I felt that I had locks myself for 20 years, and I wanted to lock her hair. And so people would say to me, that's not fair. You shouldn't lock her hair. You should give her the option of making a choice. And I said, well, she'll have a choice later. Right now, I'm making the choice for her, since I have to manage it, and I think I want it this way. And she wore her hair locked until she was about 9. And I talk about this in the video, how one day she came from school and she said, Mom, I think I want to get rid of my locks. I think I want to cut my locks off. And I said, why, honey? And she said, because the kids are making fun of me, and they're saying that my hair is dirty. And so we talked about it, and I said, okay, let's go. And we went into the salon, and I cut her locks that day. And I twisted her hair up in some little twisty extensions, and she wore her hair in twists for some time. And then eventually, after she graduated high school, she went back to her locks. And when she went back to her locks, she said, Mom, it feels like I found a friend, a lost friend. So, you know, her comfort zone was always natural, but there were extremes of natural that she wanted to experience outside of locking. And so, you know, I suggest to mothers that, you know, they talk to their daughters and they find out, you know, what images, you know, appeal to them if they're going to stay natural or not, and really work that through. Because my second daughter, her hair is a different texture altogether, and so even when she's natural, it's softer, it's finer, it's more manageable. So her being natural, it seems like an easier lifestyle for her. versus wearing heat styles. So it's all relative to, I think, age of the child and the type of person that she really is. If she's willing to manage it on her own, or does she want to, manage it less, and what kind of styles would do that? There's this range of styles that she can go to. So, I mean, my concern with mothers that come into the salon or that I consult with is twofold. What is your hair experience, the mother? And two, what type of experience you want to give to your daughter? Because a lot of times they're not the same. Most of the time they're not the same.
Do you think a lot of mothers don't realize the effect they're having on their daughter through kind of even subtle comments or just subtle things they're saying or doing?
The ones who are really concerned, who've done their research and have maybe gone on social media and understand the dialogue around natural hair, they do. But a lot of mothers don't have that kind of time to do that kind of research, but they do love their daughters and they do want the best for their daughters. However, the easiest way really to help your daughters is to be the example for your daughter. You can't say to your daughter, no, you can't have a relaxer, and you go and get a relaxer. I mean, it's a contradiction, and after a while, children realize that, it's not a balanced world. They realize that, but if you really want your daughter to have healthy natural hair, the best way to do that is for you to have healthy natural hair.
Jenell, tell me about your two daughters. I mean, you have a daughter who's under 2 years old, so she's probably not yet in that phase where she, at least consciously understands, the whole hair struggle. But you have an older daughter. What has that been like?
Son.
Oh, older son. Yes, older son. And having an older son, is he at all concerned with his hair, or is it something that even affects men, the little boys, the way it affects girls?
Well, definitely in regards to like my son, his hair, he gets a haircut. I don't actually grow his hair out, but there are mothers who grow their young boys' hair much longer, and they have a whole slew of issues. In my family, because his hair is not long, one of the things that I really wanted for him is and still will continue to be moving forward is for him to really appreciate the natural hair look by seeing me in a positive light, by loving his mom and feeling that I'm beautiful, and the way that I wear my hair, and also the way his sister wears his hair. I want him to be able to see women who identify and look like me, in the image of his sister, in the image of his grandmother, and find that to be beautiful, and not have to feel like the woman I marry has to have straight hair. If she does, so be it, but she doesn't have to look that way. That's the most important thing that I want to be able to give to him. So when I style my hair in a certain way, he actually tells me, like, I like your hair like that. And when I style his sister's hair in a certain way, he'll tell her, I like your hair, Elle. And it's just like the most heartwarming experience. And for me, I just love it. And to answer what you had asked earlier, just like Diane said, Diane is always a great wealth of information. And for those of you who are not familiar, we're actually really good friends. I personally want to be that example for my daughter. I want her to see a beautiful example, representation in her home of what beautiful curly hair is like. And I can tell that she admires her hair, because when I style it, she looks at herself in the mirror and you can see the adoration on her face. She's very, very happy with how she looks. And also for me, I am now way much knowledgeable around products, around styling. Sorry, I had some background noise from my little boy. I'm much more knowledgeable around products, around styling, so I am in a position where I'm very gentle and aware of what it requires, and because of my own learning from myself and being able to identify with what it requires, I want to be able to teach her that. So at the beginning of the call, you all saw Elle, she's wearing her bonnet, and just simple things like that. She knows right now at 15 months old that every night we wear our bonnet, we have some type of headgear to help keep our hair moisturized. She's very familiar with the wash process. she's very familiar with the styling process. And as she gets older, I want to be able to offer her that as well, just by being a part of her hair experience. And if she comes to me and tells me, you know, I want to be locked, I would like a relaxer, I will be able to talk with her in a manner that she can understand, to give her options. And I think for me, as a mom who is natural and in this beauty industry, in the natural hair niche, I probably would be so afraid of her coming to me with that question, that can I get a relaxer? But outside of the anxiety, I would be able to educate her better now than I could have ever done 5 years ago about the options for wearing her hair straight, and how it doesn't have to be a permanent choice. It can be something that's temporary. You do have styling options that allow you to have a straight look that can be managed for several days at a time or weeks at a time without having to make a permanent choice on your hair. And even assisting her with that and how to go about doing that, so she can be well and knowledgeable about her options as well, and not feel pressured into any one thing. I think my main goal is I would love for her to go to school, and the way that I felt when I would see other girls who were my age and their hair would be straight, and my hair texture, although my hair was straight from the relaxer, was still very different. I always would see them and aspire for that look. I want to be able for my daughter to go to school and for people to say to their moms, I want my hair like Elle's.
Well, you guys have been amazing, and I know that our community, they're big fans of both of yours, and I would love to open it up for some of their questions, because they're, you know, obviously you guys are incredibly knowledgeable, have lived this, you're living it right now with your own children. I also encourage everybody to please see the SheaMoisture hair raising video. It's incredibly emotional and incredibly powerful. There's so many different stories, each one incredibly unique, about mothers and daughters, you know, for women from all different backgrounds who have gone through their own, you know, own journeys with their mothers and now with their own daughters. So everyone, please feel free to you know, write in your questions, and I'm sure Jenell and Diane would love to answer them. I'm going to continue asking some too, because you touched on something, Jenell. It's interesting. We've gone, obviously our communities are about accepting your natural texture, and you know, I kind of live in fear if my daughter ever did come to me and say she wanted to relax her hair. Right now, her curly hair is her identity. She loves it. I'm incredibly thrilled about that. If nothing else about naturallycurly.com, I feel like that's the big victory there. But that fear that she would come and want it straightened, you know, like, is part of being a mom, letting them make their own decisions, I guess. That.
Can I just say this, Michelle? My daughter came to me around 12 and said, Mom, can I get a relaxer? And I said, sure you can. And she said, really? Her eyes got really big. And I said, but you're going to have to move, because I'm an advocate for natural hair. How could, I know, it sounds crazy, right? This is the thing. If your daughter decides that she wants to wear her hair straight for an occasion, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that she needs to experience that. She needs to see her hair in that state. She also needs to know the dangers and the hazards of applying heat to her hair, that she might diminish her curl, that she might alter the state of the quality of her hair. And if she still has that inclination to do it, then you've warned her and you've told her. Because the thing is this, she has to walk her path. Her path, it might, you know, it might just be that the heat and straightening for that particular time is a part of her path at learning how to manage her hair better. So it's up to you, but you know, you're reluctant, but some lessons have to be learned. Unfortunately, heat does diminish texture. And so maybe if you explain it to her, maybe the desire to do it would be lessened and she would move forward. Of course, my daughter did not relax her hair. I did allow her. We compromised, and she did some heat straightening for a few months. And guess what happened?
It broke.
That's right. It broke off. But,
there's a
but that was her lesson. That was her lesson.
There is a question from somebody, how do you help your children deal with peer pressure? You know, in
Peer
terms
pressure
of, in terms of you know, accepting their natural hair. I mean, do you
there's one word that beats everything. Love. Love. Once your child knows that you love them, we, you know, as the parent, you know, there's peer pressure, and of course, when they get to be a teenager, you know, the peer pressure might be a little bit daunting, but when they come home, there has to be a place where they feel safe, that they get confidence, that they get fed, so they can go back out in the world, because the world is going to manipulate them and devour them if we don't. So home should be a place of safety, because the world is going to challenge them. And once they get challenged, they need to have the confidence and know that they are loved and valued no matter what.
There's another question from somebody. Do you have any tips for moms that don't have curly hair but have daughters who do? How do you, a lot of times daughters want to emulate their mothers. A lot of times, as in my case, my mother wanted to understand it, she just didn't, and that kind of ignorance of what to do with curly hair led to the 1-inch pixie all over my head. What are some tips for moms who have a completely different texture than their daughters?
I always advise the women who I speak to, because, sometimes that's just how it is. I always advise them to educate themselves. The same way that if you were trying out a new fitness activity like yoga or CrossFit, or if you just got into running, or if you were picking up a new eating style, you wanted to go vegetarian, or maybe you were trying to figure out how can I make healthier meals, you would get online and you would educate yourself. It's absolutely no different. There are books about natural hair. In fact, Diane has written one or two, if I'm not mistaken. There are so many resources, such as kinkycurlycoilyme.com. There's Naturally Curly. There's YouTube channels. I myself have over 500 videos on my YouTube channels, and there's so many people out there who are making videos from the perspective of a parent who themselves may have straight hair, maybe they don't, but there's so many ways for someone to get this information. I love the video component that we have now in the YouTube space, because you can see, it's not just reading it and then trying to see if you can take what you've read and construct it in a way that may make sense to you. There's always a terminology barrier, especially if you aren't familiar with hair texture. If you're not familiar with the different elements of parting the hair, you may not even know what that means. You may not understand those things, but when you can see someone do what they say and instruct you and guide you, I mean, you can only but practice. So definitely educate yourself. Like I said, there's so many resources. Practice. Make styling your child's hair as much of a bonding experience as you would make going to an outing, going to the mall with your daughter. If your child is much younger, going to the park, going to a mommy and me. The same way you invest that time in those sentimental activities, you want to do the same when it comes to your child's hair, because that child is your child, and investing in them is investing in their confidence. You're investing in their self-being, how they see themselves in the world, and you may not be able to emulate that through the way you wear your hair, but you can still make your child feel beautiful about the hair that they have by understanding it and by teaching them to understand their hair.
I have a question from another reader who asks, have your mothers seen hair raising, and if so, what did they think of it?
My mom was excited. First of all, seeing me like on anything, camera, on the TV, on the phone, she's just like, oh my goodness. It's like she's literally watching me on the big screen. That's how she felt. So she definitely felt, she was really excited. She understood the story that I told, but she was also very interested when she saw some of the other moms, and it brought a perspective that she had never ever experienced before, and it had her thinking like, you know, there's other people with this problem. And I definitely sense a little bit of her feeling as though, you know, it made her feel like she didn't make the right choice given some of the information that she has now. But then I had to remind her and comfort her and let her know you made the choice that you could, the best choice you could make at that time for me and for you. Yeah. And it's not about now I'm this natural hair beauty woman and I'm gonna have my daughter's hair curly and I didn't have that. When I say those things, it's in no way putting you down as a mom. Look what you've created. I'm here. I'm in this movie, for goodness sake. But I've learned a lot along the way, and you are to attribute to my success. And our relationship that we have was obviously beyond hair. It wasn't just that, but that was a very important part in my life.
Yeah, and I feel like hair raising, my mother watched it, and I think there's parts of her that feel guilty, but she could only do what she could do at that time, much like yours. She didn't understand. I mean, it really is a really beautiful movie about, you know, telling stories about that impact that mothers have on daughters and their beauty awareness, and kind of how we've taken both the good and the bad, or I don't even want to say bad, that's such a negative, but the good experiences and some of the challenges, and now that's helped us with how we raise our own children, or how we want to raise our own daughters, and help them, you know, have a positive view about who they are and kind of their natural beauty. I'm really excited about the movie, and have gotten a lot of positive feedback from people who learned a lot and did not realize, you know, how much hair, the impact of hair and the struggle over hair really affected women with curly, coily hair and their mothers and daughters. You know, Diane, did you show it to your mother?
My mother saw a portion of it, yes. My mother's very proud because she, from the very beginning, I was always infatuated with beauty and fashion and hair. So I used to get in trouble because I used to, back in the day, there used to be loose powder, and I would go into the loose powder and I would have it on, and my mom would always scold me for getting in her makeup and doing my hair, you know, around her cosmetics. So now, years later, I'm making my living. This is my passion. This is my drive. I've written 4 textbooks, thanks Jenell, 4, on natural hair. It's become my life and my passion, and she's just very proud. And of course, she did the absolute best that she could as far as teaching me about self-care and self-love. But then I looked at where she came from. You know, my mother was adopted, so her background was even more, you know, challenging. So I honor my mom. I think that she did a great job. You know, she did exactly the best that she could, and she's proud of me.
Yeah, I consider this film kind of a gift from SheaMoisture to provide us all with this forum to really talk about something that we don't really get to talk about that often. You know, it was pretty emotional. You know, the day that I was filming, there was women there was lots of tears, lots of memories that came up. You know, it's amazing. You can be 50 years old and you still remember so vividly those feelings that you had, and they really don't go away. So, you know, for those of you who have not seen hair raising, I suggest you go to naturallycurly.com. It's on our watch section. It's definitely worth watching. If you have daughters, I would watch it with your daughters, or watch it with your mothers, because I really do think it's a worthwhile film that was, you know, very well done, and really captures how important this topic is. You know, I guess in terms of you know, other tips and feelings that you have, you know, for your friends, for your readers, for your clients, you know, I'd love for you to kind of, any kind of last types of things that you would like to share with people. Hello, Elle.
Elle. Yes, Michelle, I would like to share. A client came in. Her hair was already short, but it was relaxed. She had a relaxer. She was going for the big chop, as they say. And she was insistent. She wanted it. And, you know, did a consultation just to make sure. However, after I cut it, she started crying and crying and crying. And I was like, oh, my goodness, why are you crying? What's the matter? You're not happy with the style? She was like, no, I'm okay. I'm fine. She left. I wiped her tears. I hugged her. I mean, I embraced her. I washed her. I wiped her face. She called me a half an hour later and said, I'm feeling so much better. I said, well, what happened? And she said, I didn't know what my mother was going to say. She was afraid of what her mother was. This is an adult woman, like 35, 36 years old. Fearful of rejection, fearful that she would be scorned or something, that her parents would not receive her in a positive way. And so that is the perfect example of a relationship that we kind of don't want our child to have. We want to be able to share the experience of that evolution of self with connecting with your family and connecting with the people that love you. And so, you know, having a conversation, watching the documentary, A Hair Raising, kind of opens up that conversation, and it makes it easier for people to talk to each other, and it makes maybe that one mother will listen to her daughter so that she won't have to go through those tears like this other woman did.
Yeah, I think there will be people who are positively affected by it. I would love to get your perspective on how you feel the beauty landscape has changed over the past 5 years. You know, or 5 to 10 years. I mean, I know just in terms of what we're seeing on our site, we're seeing, you know, some big changes. But I'd like to see in your world, what are you seeing in terms of, you know, acceptance, perceptions, and just what the definition of beauty is. Diane?
Yes. I've been in the hair industry for 35 years. I've been doing natural hair specifically for about 25 years. I would say in the last 8 years, I've seen a dramatic change in the numbers, in the quality of the conversation, in language. There's much more language. We never had this kind of language. Social media has opened up this kind of new dialogue. Yes, much more. I have much more clients. However, I also feel like it's lost a little bit of its essence, of its core, of its cultural perspective, and making it more trendy kind of loses its quality of conversation as far as bringing culture. Hair is community. Hair is politics. Hair is social. Hair is sex. Hair is money. Hair is economics. You know, hair in this country is almost, and on every level, integrated into our system. And so this one conversation is a beginning of so many conversations, because the industry has grown so quickly, and so there's so many conversations we need to have, as far as integrating hair as part of our overall barometer of community.
I guess, Jenell, I would love to know, as a closing question for you, what is your beauty mantra for Elle? Do you have a beauty mantra for her?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I just want her to love herself naturally and know that she is enough exactly the way she is.
Yay! 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 That's a great one.
And well, and to everyone out there, that can be everyone's beauty mantra. I want to say thank you again to SheaMoisture for allowing us to be a part of this, for taking the time to produce this. We would love for you to share your own stories on the watch section. If you could share your story and put #hairraising, we would love to hear these stories. I know that everybody has their own personal story, and they're all all interesting, and people can learn from every single one of them. We appreciate both of you, Diane and Jenell. Thank you so much for being a part of this Google Hangout today. I think you brought incredible wisdom, and it's an honor to be a part of this with you. And you know, keep the questions coming, and then we'll send them on to Jenell and Diane, and you know, curl power to everybody.
Curl power.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Enjoy your journey to natural hair, everyone.
Yes.